everyone, and welcome to another spoiler review episode here on the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
It's early.
And, it is a bit early, that's true, as we're recording this. Thank you all so much for watching. We're looking at
voice. Shannon give me the Kathleen Turner vibes with his buddies there. It's a little raspy.
I've been watching the Kaminsky Method, so I'm getting like modern day Kathleen Turner.
Michael Douglas and I are back together on the Kaminsky Method. But yeah, we are here to talk about episode 6 of this inaugural season of The Bad Batch. Now, as you notice on your screen, there is one person missing. We should address this right off the bat, and we'll introduce ourselves as well in case you're new to the show. But Laura Kelly, sadly, will not be joining us today. She is celebrating her sister's 30th birthday, her Dirty 30, as she called it. So if you've been following her on Instagram or on Twitter, you've seen the pictures of the fun stories of her celebrating with her sister. So she's out this week, but she'll be back next week and carry us all the way forward for the rest of the season. And don't forget, later on this week, we will have Emma Fyfe back on the show to do a review for Loki.
Finally.
Full reveal. I got both episodes in the mailbox this morning, so I am like ready to watch. So we shall see. All right. Let's get into this thing. Let's introduce ourselves first. I am the Outlaw John Roker, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies and the Outlaw Nation. In the middle there,
Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And on the end.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you may have seen me on American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson, Teen Wolf, and Silicon Valley.
I like that. Well, you may have seen me. He's catching up, ladies and gentlemen. He's like the droid helmet coming back to life. He's got to shake it off a little bit. But, let's the droid head. Let's get into some things here. This episode's called Decommissioned. We're going to talk about our overall feelings about this thing, and then we're getting into spoiler territory. So if you haven't watched the episode, go and watch the episode and come back and pick up where you left off here. Michael, I'll start with you. Overall, what did you feel about this episode? We get the return of Sid. We get some adventures on Corellia. What did you think overall when this episode was over?
I think it's a lot of fun. I think some nice things happen in this episode. I do get the sense that overall, it's almost like they came up with a 10-episode season, and then Disney Plus was like, hey, we're going to give you 16 episodes. And so, like, they're kind of spreading it out a little bit. That being said, that's sort of more of like I really like every time we get the hints of the bigger story, I get excited. But this show just nails every adventure they have. So even though I sort of am anxious for us to get into even more of the meat, as far as another mission of the week now that they're with Sid, great mission, great callbacks to some great Star Wars characters, great Star Wars locations, and just from an animation standpoint, from an action standpoint, just across the board, like these guys are at the top of their game. Like it looks so good, it's stupid. So even though I'm sort of anxious to get to more of this stuff, which we'll talk about when we talk about the ending of this episode, as far as a mission of the week with some fun twists and surprises, I thought it was great.
Well, Shannon, what did you think overall of this episode as we go into what would you say? Episode 5, a lot of people liked, and since you can't break 16 episodes down into thirds, we're past the 1/3 point at least of the first season of The Bad Batch. We get some really great action adventure, which you love to write. So talk to me about what you felt overall about this episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And this sort of story engine of Sid gives them a job. They learn a little something along the way. I actually think this works really well. Okay. The action, definitely, when they were in the droid plant, that was fantastic. I mean, like you see the sequence and again, I'm not a huge prequel fan, but you see what the sequence in episode 2 could have been with Padme and Anakin. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I'm curious, like I think we are getting a little bit more than we realize. I think they're having to break up sort of the forward progression of the story into little bites, as Vogel said, because I do think we are starting to see how the story is going to play out. Definitely from Wrecker's side, but also from Hunter's side as well. And energy bows are one of the coolest weapons to ever grace an animated screen. The first one for me was in the old 80s Dungeons and Dragons series when the ranger had that bow that, it would manifest an arrow. I love an impractical energy weapon.
Absolutely.
Like you see how quickly a blaster can fire, and then you see these bows that there's no good reason to use it, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of this episode, even more than last week's episode. A lot of people really enjoyed last week's episode, but I like this one. I like the sense of adventure. It felt very 80s, and I like that. I'm still a kid of the 80s, and when you get those action adventures, you got the head, no, I got the head, no, you got the head, and then you've got, oh, great, look what you did. Well, we better band together. I don't like you. Him, I like. Those are those things that those jokes. Is there an Echo in here? Yeah, there's an Echo. Oh, what? The name's Echo? So it's like a who's on first situation. So that kind of not slapstick, but that kind of 80s humor, just really action adventure humor, really worked for me. We're making jokes about Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas because of Shannon's voice, but Jewel of the Nile, Romancing the Stone, it's that kind of vibe to them, and I enjoyed this episode for that, and I loved what we got at the end, just a little tease, as Michael said, of the bigger story that'll keep tongues wagging for the next week until we get to the next episode. And full reveal to my two compatriots here on the show with me, Shannon is not the only one that's also just kind of waking up and kind of bleary-eyed on a Sunday morning. Apparently, I've made the show live instead of taped. So be on your best behavior, ladies and gentlemen, as we do this thing over the next 40 minutes. So let's have some fun today. And we've got 60 people watching us live right now. So out of nowhere, total surprise. So be on your best P's and Q's.
This is the equivalent of like waking up in your underwear and walking out to make coffee, and there's 60 people sitting on your couch, and you're like, "Oh shit!" Morning, everybody. Morning, everybody.
Oh, I just clicked over to the comments, and people are
people are commenting. So thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. So I did not intend for it to be live. I had no idea people were going to be up this Sunday morning, but maybe we've stumbled on a brilliant decision. I don't know. We shall see. But we're gonna.
It's like Roka. Yeah. It's like Roka's half awake, and on his giant like metal sort of like table, he's got one red button that says live and one red button that says pre-taped, and he just tapped the wrong one.
It says live and blow up the world, and I go, all right, live.
Just like the Bad Batch, we will have to adapt and overcome.
Well, I appreciate it.
There you go.
We're up to almost 80 people watching us live. Thanks, everybody. We're trying to keep this one under an hour, so I don't know how many comments we'll bring into the chat, but certainly we'll go through this thing. All right, Michael, let me jump into the first little description. Usually we go beat by beat through the episode, but this is just three actually basic scenes overall, so I'm not going to spend too much time detailing every specific thing. Yes, Mike.
And hey, usually we don't do it live, so all bets are off today. Do it however the hell you want.
We're letting our freak flag fly. That's for damn sure. All right, so we start the episode with a beautiful shot of Ord Mantell. Once again, the animation in this season has been stellar. You almost want them to go back and redo the entire Clone Wars with this kind of level of animation and the kind of money that they're spending on this show. Of course, it won't happen, but it would be nice down the road. We're seeing Omega learning how to use her energy bow with the rest of the Bad Batch and some very vocal drunk locals in Sid's bar there. She gets a lesson on consistency and tuning out distractions from Echo. This is a great little seed they're planting here. This idea of her cockiness, her young, confident, her being like, well, I hit it 3 times. And Echo's like, nah, that doesn't mean you're good at it. You've got to be consistent and tune things out. Then Sid comes in with a mission for them to find a tactical droid on Corellia. As most of you know, when you hear Corellia, you think immediately of Han Solo and Kira now. And Hunter debates whether the Bad Batch is going to be mercenaries for Sid for just a few seconds. And Sid's like, there's no need to debate. You're going to work for me. I made the decision. That's that. She asked them if they know what a tactical droid is. And Tech steps in, and Tech, who only has like some small scenes, he has less to do in this episode than he's had, I think, previously up to this point. So interesting. He tries to interject with information. Sid cuts him off, says it's her briefing. Sid says to them, "Look, let's do this thing. We're going to make some money on the deal. You go get this tactical droid, because there's information and what have you in that droid, and I will watch your back. And then just to put a little button on the scene, Sid says she also gives Omega a lesson on physical strength. That's the reason why she isn't being more consistent with the bow. Mike, good intro. We're still on Ord Mantell. We're still with Sid. I thought the Bad Batch would have maybe taken off to the next thing, but it looks like this is essentially going to be their headquarters for a little bit. What do you think about this opening scene overall?
It's a lot of fun. Like as Shannon said, I think we're sort of in, at least for a while, that sort of A-team format. Like Ord Mantell is sort of home base, go out on a mission, come back and report into Sid. So I think we'll see a little bit more of Ord Mantell. Animation is fantastic. I particularly enjoyed the detail of the homeless alien guy kind of asleep in Ord Mantell as we sort of panned in.
That's just right.
Either homeless or dude had quite a night. But either way, he's just sort of sleeping there. Just really quick on the animation, because I was actually just talking to a friend of mine at Nickelodeon about it. You know, I watched the new Rugrats, came out on Paramount Plus. I've been watching Camp Cretaceous on Netflix, and both of these shows are really well-made, high-end, expensive CG animated shows for television. But with both of them in different ways, whether it's number of locations, number of characters, texturing, you can see the limits of TV animation. Like you can see that even when you're spending a ton of money for a big high-profile show like a Jurassic Park series or a Rugrats reboot, you still sort of see, this doesn't quite look like Pixar. And then you go over to Bad Batch and you realize just how much money they are really spending, because each week we are getting something that rivals anything you will see on any big screen from any major studio. And you really realize these are redonkulously expensive things, and they are just like, what they're doing is amazing. So totally agree with Johnny on that. Really fun scene. Really cute just seeing them do that. Good, setting up Omega with the bow, setting up the idea that you need to focus, which is just a really nice setup and payoff when we get to the end of the episode. Really just love Sid. As John was saying at the beginning of this episode, when you have sort of these Mission of the Week episodes where they're not packed with story, you have a ton of time for banter. And I think that this episode just nails it on the banter. I think Sid and Rafa both get the MVP awards for banter, but Sid coming in and kind of just barreling over everybody. And then the little button at the end where she kind of shows Omega, here's how you use the bow. I think it's a cute little button. I also think it's a nice little reminder, don't fuck with Sid. She might be short. She might be wearing some really oversized Marge Simpson beads, but do not fuck with her. Because she is still a Trandoshan and she knows how to fight. Like, whether it was last week in her office where you saw that big tooth in a place of honor on her desk, or her just bam, 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 Hunter makes a choice at the end of this episode that if Sid finds out about it, not thrilled with. And I think that if Sid gets on their bad side, which is a strong possibility, or more specifically, if they get on Sid's bad side, we might see a different side of Sid that will be pretty exciting.
Yep, it's good. Shannon, Michael makes an excellent point. You don't mess with Large Marge. She's handling business. It is in that location. But what do you think about the whole opening here and the animation, and also a little more of the Omega thing, like her being trained, Wrecker leaning over and saying she's not a natural, is she? So those kinds of elements here just kind of laying the groundwork of Omega kind of being the person that we're really putting over in this series.
Yeah, I mean, I love the setup, because we're going into that sort of underworld of Ord Mantell, and you have a potential patron coming in, and it seems to have set a very kind of serious mood. And as the patron is trying to come in, an energy arrow hits right by, whoa, I'm out of here. So it's setting the stage, but also giving us those moments of levity, which are really, really fun. I thought Wrecker's line was really interesting. She's not a natural. It's well, she might not be a natural at this, but as we've seen thus far, Omega learns very quickly.
Yeah. And we do see that later on in the episode. Great point, Shannon. Yeah.
And we start to think is this her clone, her special skill is that she's able to absorb stuff very, very quickly like a sponge. And also, obviously, that Sid moment was great, but I'm hoping that that's sort of foreshadowing. We're going to see an episode where Sid is going to have to get into the trenches with the Bad Batch and really show what she can do.
Damn, I hadn't even thought about that. It's having Sid out there fighting alongside the Bad Batch. That'd be kind of badass. See the Trandoshan out there handling some business. I'm down for that as well.
My guess is Sid's place of business is going to be invaded at some point.
Yeah, it's a good point.
That's my guess.
I like
Sid versus Crosshair. Here for it.
Or
here for it.
Or maybe
yeah.
Yeah, I like the opening too. I love the banter. I love the giving a little flavor. Yeah, no, I've seen some reviews of people like, come on, get on with it. But what's wrong with just sitting and enjoying a world and like letting it flesh itself out? The 8-episode, 10-episode people are going out of their minds, and I get it. You're conditioned to it. But ladies and gentlemen, back in my day, we had 26 episodes for a season, hour long. So, those are sometimes you just have to be okay with letting things play out, develop, and flesh out the world, because they're fleshing out things so that later on, when stuff goes down, you don't need a bunch of exposition to understand what is happening and who the people are that are involved. And this is a progression. If they were immediately on the side of the rebellion, it would be weird all of a sudden so quickly. It's good that it's taking its time to let them understand what's going on in the world and giving us a window into it. Yeah, well, Mikey?
I'll push back on that a little bit, because I think because I'm in the middle, because I am thoroughly enjoying every one of these episodes. I think these got everyone from the writing to the animation top of their game. Like, I'm having a blast watching it. I am also one of these people that's like, okay, but let's keep moving. And I think it's less when people have a frustration about like, let's get on with it. No. I think it's less, let's just have every episode be a story banger where we get all of this information. And it's more the fact that the individual character arcs of the Bad Batch are moving very slow. To your point, like, Tech has very little to do this week. We don't really know what Echo. Like, there's a lot of talk. We know that Hunter kind of feels very paternal towards Omega. We know that Wrecker is a sweetheart who's got his head problems. We know that Echo is sort of still finding his place on the team a little bit. We know that Tech is very clinical, but each week is so focused on the mission. We've got to get a piece of machinery to get off the moon. We've got to go rescue this Rancor. We've got to go get this tactical droid. And we're not having individual sort of character stories with it. We're not learning more about Echo, or we're learning more about Tech as people. And so I think that the frustration is we're very mission-based, and the missions are all super, super fun. But I do think if we were getting a little bit more into the dynamics of the team and who these guys really are and where they get along with each other, where they have conflict, it would help fill those gaps, so that when we weren't having an episode where we were having some giant revelation about the rebellion or the Empire, we would still feel like we were really learning. And I feel like that maybe one place where Bad Batch is, as much as I'm thoroughly enjoying everything, slightly lacking.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I see your point of view for sure, and I understand that. I'm more just kind of trusting that they're going to show things when they show things, and we'll see when they present. But I hear the point, and certainly that makes a lot more sense when it's presented that way. All right, let's move on to the next scene here. And look, I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can so that we can talk about all the particulars that go on here. In order to get into Corellian airspace, they use the old trick of hiding under a ship, which I think is really, really funny. There's a quick history on tactical droids. They make plans to land in the dockyard, going on foot. They make it to this factory to find it's guarded by police droids. They make their way to an entry point. Wrecker reacts unfavorably to stairs. I'm trying to figure out why that might be. Maybe heights. So he gets nervous about heights for sure. We get an overview of the factory. And when we get into the factory, there's some Blade Runner vibes to that factory. And we hear a score beat that feels a little similar to me. Maybe I'm misreading that, but that's what I got. They split up. They take out Daft Punk that's behind the controls there. Then they find this tactical droids location with Omega's help. Then the droid head is taken off this conveyor belt where it was found originally by someone in a worker's outfit. And then another person in a worker's outfit confronts Omega. And we find out it's our new/old friends, the Martez sisters, Trace and Rafa, who we last saw having an adventure with Ahsoka Tano in the last season of the Clone Wars. And not being the biggest fan of Jedi, although eventually they do help Ahsoka in that story. Rafa struggles with Omega. Her energy bow shoots a laser arrow into the factory, alerting everyone to their presence. Everything gets locked down. The police droids come in. They fight them off. Trace grabs the head, and it throws it to Rafa, but then Rafa hits a police droid. It falls on the conveyor belt. Omega grabs it instead. Wrecker needs to reboot the system, heads over to this platform, confronts his heights again by swinging over this melting metal. Little Terminator 2 action there as you're looking at the melting metal there. And as he swings across, he hits his head again and flips a switch, starts the conveyor, but then Wrecker falls down in pain, and he is shot down by the police droids as well. He starts to mutter "good soldiers" as he's down on the ground. The battle with the police droids continues. Omega is on the heavy metal conveyor. Hunter takes down a bunch of droids. They fall in the conveyor belt. Omega falls in the melting pit. Trace helps her out. Hunter flies in and helps as well. Rafa falls in with a funny quip. They shoot their way out. Wrecker is struggling against Crosshair's words in his head. Good soldiers follow orders. Then Hunter reveals that a whole slew of police droids are coming. They turn on the tactical droid's head. Eventually, they get the information, Tech does, from the tactical droid, then kind of reboots it all up, and they control the clones to come to life again. And after a few quips from them, which are really funny, they shoot and fend off the police droids. They escape. They get into the ship after they call R7. And let's stop there. All right. That's I broke it down in 3 minutes. There's a lot more particular stuff to get into. So Shannon, I'll go to you first. You write a lot of action episodes for the work you do as a writer now with animation stories. What did you feel about this extended action sequence here that is essentially a majority of the whole episode?
You know, the hot potato keep away template for action works really, really well.
Yeah.
And it allows you to kind of have some fun character moments as well. And in this case, we're getting those character moments from the Martez sisters, which, you know, I was not a huge fan of them from the Clone Wars. It had less to do with them as characters. It was more that they were sort of, in my opinion, impeding the big story. I was like, I get it. I get that we have to see this. We have to see what Ahsoka has been doing, but let's get to the big thing. So even though like I was not the biggest fan of them in the Clone Wars, I do like when Star Wars uses the things everything that's on the table.
Yeah.
Like when they were in Corellia, I'm like, oh, are we going to see Lady Proxima? You know, that kind of creature that from Solo. So, I mean, I love that they use them.
Or even a young Han Solo or a young Kira. They're all with they're in the White Worm Syndicate right now, aren't they? So they could be part of it.
Yeah.
I love when they are using things that the audience recognizes right away. And even though, you know, I read on Twitter a little bit that people are kind of like, my least favorite part of Clone Wars. It's kind of like, okay, hold on. You know, there's nothing wrong with these characters. They were just kind of they were the opening to the bigger story. But I think the connection that Trace and Omega have is great. The interplay between Hunter and Rafa, fantastic. And the great thing about and like we forget about this because the battle droids are kind of played for comedy a lot. The whole idea of a tactical droid is that they learn from their battles, and knowing that, okay, now the Empire has these clones that, you know, are still going to be doing their fighting. The information inside this tactical droid is invaluable now. Because it's like, oh, this is how we fight against them, because they're constantly learning, kind of figuring new ways out. And as an audience, we know that the clones are eventually going to go the way of the dodo. So you see how this plan is only going to work for a little while. But the whole sequence together, I mean, it's just a lot of fun when you have people doing their jobs, as Vogel had said a couple episodes ago. Right. Everyone has their job that they're doing. And then you add in Wrecker's issues of like hitting his head, and you hear those words, and it's just like, oh, this is potentially going to be tragic. A fun sequence with a lot of little character stuff inside.
Yeah, for sure. Michael, there was a lot going on here. Break down what stood out to you, break down what you liked about it, you know, as you were seeing it all progress and develop and have multiple layers. Wrecker, all the stuff going on with him, Omega and the sisters going at each other about this thing. And then, of course, each one, Trace and Rafa, maintaining their personalities from what we saw in Clone Wars, right? sorry, Rafa is more of the determined one, more of the harder edge one. Trace is more of the nicer one, more the magnanimous one, and we see that play out throughout this whole sequence.
Yeah. So yeah, well, first of all, love going back to Corellia, the Detroit of the Star Wars galaxy. It's beautiful spot for everybody to visit. But yeah, and I did love, kind of to your point, that we kind of did the old Solo trick. To get into Corellia. Like, so a nice little nod to Han Solo without really diving into, oh, here's young Solo running around in Corellia. But like the fact that they used that old trick, and that you do get the sense that, you know, when Han does it in Empire, that, oh, this is really an old trick that he learned along the way that like is older than we ever thought it was. So I thought that was really kind of a nice little kind of wink and a nod. Yeah, like Shannon said, the whole hot potato, like here's the thing that we need to get, and it keeps going back and forth, is a great device for an action sequence. The other thing that is really great in big action sequences like this is keeping the goals as simple as possible. Yeah. So the initial goal is get the tactical droid's head, but then once all hell breaks loose and Omega sort of alerts everybody, and the workers in the plant sort of set up the security system, it's a very clear, it's the Jurassic Park thing. It's like, we need to shut down the system completely so that we stop this, and then we need to reboot the system. And so it's like, it's a very clear 1-2 thing, and it's something that when you're watching it, you always notice when something is too complicated because you start getting confused about what everyone's doing. But when you watch a giant, to Johnny's point with his amazing 3-minute summary, the majority of the show is this action sequence. And so the fact that with all of these characters running around, you don't actually get confused. Like, you're kind of just watching it all happen. And that's because they really laid out a very nice, simple, here's the goals, here's what you need to do, which allows for all of the amazing banter. I am in the minority in that I really like the Martez sisters. I know that between the Bad Batch at the beginning of season 7 and the epic final 4 episodes of Clone Wars at the end, the Martez sisters weren't the most thrilling part of that season. But I think that as characters, they're endlessly fascinating. I think Rafa is awesome as a character. I think she's an amazing... I mean, I think Trace is too, but Trace is sweet and lovely, and I think she brings a nice piece of it. I love Rafa. I think... And this episode highlighted what I like about her so much. The brassiness, the attitude, the sometimes maybe uncalled for confidence, I think is just great. So I was happy to see them show up. I also am happy about what them showing up kind of means for what's been going on behind the scenes, but we'll save that for the final scene when we talk about it. But yeah, so great, amazing banter. Really great stuff, and then great moment to really bring Wrecker's whole head issue to a head. No pun intended. But like, you know, the fact that this is the moment, and when everybody needs to be on their game because they're trying to escape this situation that's completely gone, out of control. This is the moment that things get bad, and what all of us have assumed for the last few episodes is in fact true, which is he's having a way harder time with his chip than everybody else is. And, the fact that he's big, strong Wrecker, and he sort of fights back on it just in the nick of time, great, but we know that this is coming. And I'm really curious, like, what they're going to do in this next episode. Like, this seems like something that Wrecker should maybe bring up to the team once they get back to Ord Mantell. Like, hey, guys, kind of have a feeling things are bad. And I don't know if they're going to play that or play that he just doesn't say anything, so I'll be interested to see. I was getting all the Toy Story 3 flashbacks with Omega, which gives me major PTSD. Anytime that I see anybody falling into a pit of molten garbage at this point in my life, I just see those little toys reaching out for each other, and I start to hyperventilate. So that happened. And then I loved the solution of bringing the droid army back. To Shannon's point, the droids... I'm not, as I've said many times, I'm not the biggest fan of the prequel movies, and I kind of thought the droids were kind of dumb, but Clone Wars completely changed my mind on the droids. I think that the battle droids are hilarious. I think that the more advanced droids are actually badass and really interesting, and I find tactical droids super, super interesting. So the solution to kind of bring the droid army back to life to help them escape, I thought was brilliant, and they did a really smart thing, which was... As Trace and Rafa and the Bad Batch are sort of coming together as a team, Trace is the one with the idea. She's like, we can use this tactical droid for this. and she tries to do it, but the signal doesn't boost enough, and it's Tech who comes in and boosts the signal. So even in the solution, it's a team effort, and like using them both together that way, it really sort of solidifies them all as being on the same team, which I thought was really, really fun. And I think that, and battle droids for the win with the great one-liners. When that one battle droid woke up and he was like, "What happened? Did we win?"
Yeah,
I was like, "Damn you, Filoni! You made me like battle droids." I say Roger way too much in real life at this point. So props to you for making me love something that I always thought that I would hate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way this whole action sequence was paced out was brilliant. They threw in the right amount of humor at the right time, I think, to make you even humor that wouldn't have. I mean, that Echo stuff should not have worked. That who's on first crap should not have worked, but it worked because the scene earned that moment. The scene was so good in the action sequence, the way it built up. And yes, you talk about hot potato, but it was believable hot potato. They were both after it. They're both competent people. They're both trying to get it. Omega's trying to prove herself. Raph and Trace are driven because they've got to survive to get this information, to make money, to be able to live. We know we got their backstory in the Clone Wars seasons, in the last season of Clone Wars. So we know that they go on these missions in order to make money and survive because of what happened with the Jedi crashing that ship into their complex and killing their parents. So they have to survive in some way. So there's a desperation there. Omega trying to prove herself to the rest of the Bad Batch, and all of that stuff going on is great. But there's also moments of humor. And yes, the battle droid stuff, when he's doing, exactly what you said. But then he's like, orders are orders. That all those little things just are great humor that allows you to enjoy this. But we also had good interactions with Omega and other powerful female warriors, which I think was great. That wasn't about the Bad Batch. They're having conversations about themselves and going back and forth. And I mean, her saying, "Get a weapon," and she's like, "I had one." You know, those little back and forths I think are brilliant to show that Omega is becoming very, very quickly a competent, equal member of this Bad Batch. Not there yet, but she is learning quickly. And when she is doing the stuff with the bow and she's just like, it's all about tuning out distractions, that seed that was planted in the previous scene we talked about is paid off. The Wrecker stuff is heartbreaking and scary. I mean, if you get Crosshair and Wrecker on your side versus the other guys, that's a tough twosome to defeat. All muscle, all brains, and ruthless. That is a tough twosome to defeat here. So I wonder if that's the route they're going to go. Someone mentioned in the chat about Tech using his scanner on Wrecker, but they seem to be blissfully unaware of what Wrecker is struggling with. And I wonder if Wrecker is actually going to say something to them, because characters like that don't usually reveal their weakness, physical weakness. So I wonder if Wrecker will pull Hunter aside and say, "Oh, I'm having troubles in my head" or something, and get the scan, and we figure this out.
What's he gonna say there?
You know, I'm no Dee Bradley Baker. You know,
I kind of feel like I like your Wrecker. I think you need to do this more often.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and also consider with Wrecker that he's not necessarily connecting the chip to his head hurting.
You're right. He's not. But his head is hurting. And why is he hearing Crosshair's words in his head? That's something.
Well, that's
what every clone hears.
It's
like
it's
every
not just
clone heard
Crosshair.
that.
Sorry. Good point.
But I do think he does say it's a question. This is where I think it's going to be interesting next week, and I think also might be a hint of who we see at the end. But he literally is saying "good soldiers." Like how much is he remembering about this moment? Like as he's there, his head's hurting, he's having this like breakdown, and he's saying "good soldiers." And so I do think, if it were my choice, the direction they go, he would be aware enough to be like, "Guys, this is not just a bump on the head. This is something." Right. I'm a little worried because I think it's more interesting for a storytelling for them to realize that there's a problem and be like, "Oh fuck," than for him to not say anything and then something happens. That being said, if they do it either way, I'm sure they're going to do it great. My preference would be the former.
Let's talk about something. The police droids. I like those police droids. I love the design. Do they speak correct me, is it Japanese that they're speaking, or do they speak their own language? It sounds Japanese, so I don't want to misstep in any landmines. I'm just saying is what it sounds like. Can you guys?
It's not Japanese.
Droides. Okay.
It sounds like, so First of all, from a design standpoint, they kind of look like that. What is it? I think it's EV9 something from Jabba's palace. That droid that like assigns all the other droids in Jabba's palace. There's like from a design element, there was a little bit of you're a feisty one, you'll do great on Jabba's sail barge. That one. They kind of like reminded me of that. Not exactly, but definitely in the same sort of model.
That's a good accent. But yeah.
Thank you very much. We're gonna voice all the characters. But I think like it sounds a little Huttese to me, but it's definitely like a droid-ish language. It's not anything specific that we have going.
I like it. I like it either way. You look at the situation with the Martez sisters. You may not have liked them in Clone Wars season 7, but give them a second chance because I think they were written and played out really well in this episode. I liked seeing them. I liked their confidence and competence in the mission. I like they have two different personalities that completely work, which is why they work so well together. And even at the end there, which we'll get to in just a second, I like that as well. Now, about what's your feeling on the Martez sisters, Shannon? You haven't said anything about that.
Well, I mean, again, I wasn't the big fan of them in Clone Wars, but that had less to do with them as a character, more just that they were a roadblock to getting to the story that I wanted to see.
Right. Did you like them in this episode?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I thought the dynamic that I said Huck, Hunter and Rafa had, the dynamic that they had was a lot of fun. Like, you're welcome. Like they keep saving each other. And then once Wrecker shows up, once he gets kind of, back online and you see him just lay waste to the droids.
Now him I like.
Rafa's like, him I like. Like they're very clearly defined characters.
Yes.
And that's, again, I think, we had talked about this last week. Like when you write a script, if you can cover up the character names and tell who they are by the dialogue, that's a well-drawn character. And I think you can absolutely tell the difference between Trace and Rafa.
Yeah. Shout out to Brigitte Kali Canales who does Trace, and Elizabeth Rodriguez who does Rafa. Elizabeth Rodriguez been working for a long time, so very nice to see her. Two Latinas involved in this, and I'd be remiss not to mention the director was Nathaniel Villanueva along with Brad Rao, and the writer was Amanda Rose Munoz. So a little more of a Latin flavor to this episode. So I was happy to see it. Maybe they understood how to use the Martez sisters correctly here. Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think another thing that's great about the Martez sisters here, and again, more to talk about when we get to that final scene, but there's growth. So when Ahsoka meets Trace and Rafa in season 7 on Coruscant, like Trace is definitely a great builder, but she barely knows how to fly her ship. Right. And Rafa is doing some real shady business and not doing it great. Like she's in debt to a lot of people. Yeah. And even on their whole first adventure with the spice, they get into it and Ahsoka's like, oh my God, these two are completely out of their depth here. And they don't really know what they're doing. And whatever's happened between then and now, they are much more capable. And also, as Rafa says at the end, have chosen a side. Like what they're doing now, just based on the fact that they're working with R7, is definitely no longer just struggling to survive and kind of trying to run scams. Like they're definitely moving forward on their path, and that's what makes them interesting. Seeing these characters that started at a place, met Ahsoka, had this experience with the Jedi. We got this backstory about why they feel the way they feel, which really informed Ahsoka's opinion about the Jedi. And then we see them now, and in the direction that they're going as characters. And it's just, somebody put in the chat, it's like, it's the Filoni-verse. And the fact that I said this to my brother, and I've said this I've been saying this about Bad Batch for the first few weeks, but the fact that we have this episode that even though we're on Corellia, there's no Solo, there's no Jedi, there's no Empire really in this episode. Like we've got Sid the Trandoshan, we've got the Bad Batch and Omega, we've got Trace and Rafa, and we have this really, really compelling adventure with characters that just only have existed in the Filoniverse. Like and that they are so compelling and so interesting to us that we're good to, like, I'm good. I don't need to see any other characters that connect to the bigger Star Wars thing. It was just a great adventure. So I think it's just a really, really great job on their part to create these characters and send them on these paths.
Oh, and one last thing. That R7 droid, is that Ahsoka Tano's old droid? Did they rebuild that old droid? Did Ahsoka? There's a lot of debate whether it's R7 or not. What do you guys think?
So that is the exact same color scheme.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, you're not going to just call a droid R7. And I think this gets into the final scene, but like, the last time we saw R7, after R7, Cheap, and I forget the other droid's name, just got destroyed and shot point blank by the clones for helping Ahsoka and Rex escape. The very last time we see R7 is we see R7's remains outside of the ship at the end of Clone Wars, like that. And although we don't know this for sure, it seems that somebody, and there's two choices of who that would be, rebuilt R7, and now R7 is with the Martez sisters. So.
All right.
Pretty clear who our options are for who they're talking to at the end, it seems like.
That's fair. Let's get into the end scene real quick. Nice little super chat here from I Am Jared Dean saying, great job, gents, as always. Everybody hit the like button. Yes, we've got apparently 140 you all watching us live. So please hit that like button. Thanks for joining us on a surprise live show. That was not my intention, but hey, you're here. Thank you for watching. And please hit that like button as we go into the last section of the episode and our show here. So we get to the ship here. On the ship, there is a discuss. Oh wait, sorry. They escape onto the ship. Then there's a really sweet goodbye. But they get on the ship first, actually, and there's a discussion about the reasons for why the sisters needed this tactical droid's information and his head versus why the Bad Batch needed it. Trace reveals that they were stealing the head to fight back against the Empire. After Hunter reveals that they just took the mission and didn't ask any questions. Two different approaches to this job. Why aren't you fighting for the Empire? Asks Rafa, of all people. Rafa is the one that asks Hunter why he is not fighting for the Empire as the clones. And he responds back, well, not all of us are the same. We're different. And she says, yeah, I've heard that before. Kind of echoes a little bit of their interactions with Ahsoka. They part ways. And I love the back and forth between Omega and the Martez sisters, where she says, you guys got to come visit me in Ord Mantell. Isn't that seedy? Yeah, in the best ways. And then Hunter gives the data rod with the intel to the sisters. And when he's asked why he's doing it, he says, because you all will use it for the right reasons. And Rafa kind of says, oh, well, maybe you are different. And he has this great moment. And I do want to stress this moment for myself, and we'll get his reactions. He says, things were clearer when we were just soldiers. And Rafa, which is great, says, take it from me, in the end, we all choose sides. Rafa, who kind of, remember when we first introduced to her, she was kind of like, whoever pays, I've got to do these things and just to survive. She is making a decision here. We wipe to the sisters talking to what looks to be, I put a question marks here. And then I said a squad. She mentions that a squad of rogue clones are around and she knows where to find them. Mike, a lot to explore here in this final scene. What did you think? What stood out for you? Who do you think is in the hologram?
Well, so first on the whole conversation between Rafa and Hunter, which I thought was really great. You know, we talked about this last week when we were talking about the Bad Batch sort of becoming mercenaries, which was when they were talking about slaves, and, you know, Tech was like, we're doing this for the money. And Echo clearly was like, well, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do. And this idea of the right thing versus what is good for us financially, or for our Sid protecting our backs, or whatever it is. Right. You see in this episode that kind of that comes up again. So when you're rescuing baby Rancor from slavers, you're like, all right, well, we're probably on the good side here. Like, this is probably good. But in this situation where the Bad Batch has no idea who's going to get that tactical droid, and Trace and Rafa are like, we're using it for this. Yeah. And Hunter makes this decision, like, they're not going to get money from Sid. Like, they're not delivering at the end. He gives it over to them because they're going to use it right. And I think this idea of maybe this mercenary life isn't really what's right for the Bad Batch, because they aren't okay. They aren't okay just doing it for the money. There is kind of a higher level of, you know, whether their experience as soldiers or just really who they are, they're not down for that. And so I think just that conversation between the two of them is really great, because it does sort of speak to kind of the direction where we're going with them. Yeah. And I think it's also great, as we were saying about, or as I was saying about the character arcs of Trace and Rafa, and Johnny, like you said, like the last time we saw Rafa, she didn't choose a side. So for her to say, take it from me, eventually you all choose sides, and they're clearly on the side of right now. That, you know, it is funny. I think that in my mind, and maybe Star Wars Rebels sort of informed this, I felt like there was several years where nobody really fought against the Empire, and then everyone was like, enough is enough. But between Saw Gerrera and now the Martez sisters, you're like, the Empire showed up and everybody was like, well, fuck, we got to do some shit. Because you're already seeing the beginnings of this happening.
Yeah.
And then, as far as the who they're talking to, as I was saying, like, I don't think, even if, I know someone said in the chat, like, you know, there's lots of astromech droids, maybe there's a different R7. There can always be a different R7, but in this show, when you're making the choice, the specific choice to have them have a droid with the same color scheme and call him R7, I'm pretty sure that the intention is that is the same R7.
Yeah.
And if it is the same R7, that does mean that the Martez sisters, at some point between the last time we saw them in Clone Wars and now, have either been in contact with Ahsoka or Rex or both, because that's the only place they would have gotten the R7 droid.
Right.
And because they say to R7, patch him in and not her, my vote is Rex. I'm pretty sure. And also the fact
you think
that
Rex
when
is in the robe? Okay.
I think so. I know it looks like a Jedi robe. My brother and I had a big debate about this, but there's very few Jedi left. And so I think that it's likely Rex and here's my reasons why. And next week when it's not Rex, I will eat my shorts and say whatever, I was totally wrong. But my reasonings why I do think it's Rex is Rafa says, I know these rogue clones. I thought you might be really interested in that. And Rex, as a clone who is rogue, who is not a clone that has been taken over by his chip, would be interested in that. We know we're going to see Rex eventually because he was in the early trailers. And I think that because Wrecker's issues with his chip are coming to a head, bringing in one of the clones that successfully had his chip removed is maybe the way that we're going. Like that between Tech having this scanner and Rex having the experience of like, I don't have that chip in my head anymore. Ahsoka saved me. This may be us getting to the point where we're going to make a big resolution about the Wrecker thing. So my vote is Rex for those reasons.
Okay. Shannon, what did you think of this entire final scene, the goodbye with the Martez sisters, and also who do you think is there in that hologram? Do you agree with Mike, or do you have another choice?
Well, I have another choice, but after listening to Vogel's argument, I'm I'm inclined to agree with him.
He can be persuasive, I know. Trust me.
The resolution to the scene I thought was great. Yeah. The whole idea that Hunter willingly gives over the data rod, and that you have this idea that he is starting to make choices for themselves versus the Wrecker situation where he's literally fighting against the good soldiers follow orders. It's a really interesting dynamic to have. And even though Crosshair is not with the team anymore, you have the Crosshair Wrecker on one side of they're basically, you know, doing what the chip is saying.
Yeah.
You have Hunter who's learning to kind of do things for themselves. We have Echo who already does not, being a mercenary doesn't sit well with him. And in the middle, you're going to have Tech who is completely logical. And it's like, what direction will he go? Yeah. Because even though doing the right thing might be the right thing, it doesn't always make the most sense. Yeah. And when you're dealing with someone who's just pure logic, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Mm-hmm. My guess, like I didn't think it was Ahsoka. My guess was Bail Organa.
Yeah. Okay.
But looking at the amount of time that has passed in between Ahsoka leaving the Martez sisters and now, it's probably not that long. So I don't know how that connection would happen because Bail Organa is pretty highly placed in the government, and it's like I don't know what the connector would be. Well, Rex, what were you gonna say, Vogel?
So I know that you tend to agree with my point because I'm very persuasive, but in defense of your point a little bit, I do think Bail Organa is not a horrible guess for a few reasons. One, so well done. So
thanks for complimenting me.
No, I think that only in the Ahsoka novel that came out a while back that sort of explained what was going on with her. It did have the moment where she reunited with Bail Organa, but given what's happened in Clone Wars, that novel isn't 100% canon. But we do know that Ahsoka probably links up with Bail Organa, and Bail Organa from Revenge of the Sith on is basically like, I mean, he rescues Yoda, he gets everybody out, he has Leia, like, he's already in deep, as high up in the government as he is, he's already in deep at the beginnings of the rebellion. I mean, he's really there at the very beginning of everything, so even if, as I was saying, R7 kind of came from Rex and Ahsoka, and Ahsoka, we know from Rebels, is early in the stages of forming the rebellion. Bail Organa's in the mix on all of that. So if they were to bring him in, that would not be an outside of the realm. Like, I think it's more likely that it's Bail Organa than it's some other Jedi that survived Order 66 that we haven't seen.
Yeah. I mean, the way with which Rafa speaks, there's a slight familiarity, saying like, you would be interested in this. Like, I was not taking into account the Rex factor. I'm like, okay, it's either Ahsoka or it's Bail Organa. But I do think it's probably Rex. But at the same time, they have used Bail Organa quite a bit in the Clone Wars, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him pop up.
Well, I was going to say Bail Organa as well, but I had a backup plan in case one of you all used that, so I will go to my backup plan. But yeah, I love this ending. First of all, let me say I love the ending. I love the backup because those ladies and the young girl have established a connection with her. So I love that they get their own private goodbye. That's a great little in-joke between them, which is fantastic. Love Hunter kind of stepping forward and making a decision here. Once again, as you said, Michael, to do the right thing here. We're seeing that. And I agree. I think what you brought up was interesting, Michael. Yeah, you thought there was a long period where they just kind of let things go and then eventually fought back. I think when it was the Clone Wars, it was easy to see the issues on both sides. But when we've come into the Empire, it's feeling very, very clear that everybody is reacting very strongly one way or another about what's happening and is immediately into making sure this doesn't happen because they understand or they're hearing intel on what Palpatine has done here and as a senator and what have you. So they're more inclined to be a part of it. So this idea that Rafa has made a choice is actually a very significant character beat for her. And you see Hunter, his moment, I'm gonna tell you, as a former military guy, hearing him say, like, it was easier when we were just soldiers. Right. Why? Because you could go on missions and you had things to accomplish. And yeah, you could break the rules because you were rebels, but like you still had a construct to exist in, parameters to exist in that you could function. Just like we've seen with PTSD or other soldiers who've left being in the military, they have a hard time coming back to the real world. They have a hard time understanding how to function in the real world again because the real world doesn't have parameters, or the parameters you think it has can change from day to day. People you trusted to be in there with you stab you in the back. Managers use you. All those kinds of, they betray you. You see all of that happening here in the real world. Not that military isn't, but you know what I mean, the civilian world, I guess. And that can be difficult. So we're seeing Hunter kind of seeing this step by step, episode by episode, confronting this. And it's a difficult transition for him. But I trust that he will make that right decision when the time comes as well. And I like that they're slowly building that out. And I will say, since I can't take Bail Organa, which I thought it was just fun because it would be great. Also, it's a Latino writer. The two Latina sisters cooking up with Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa just makes all kinds of sense to me overall. But Saw Gerrera is a possibility here. We've already been introduced to him being a part of this world. His people were shot down by Crosshair and those soldiers that were there. So the possibility is that Saw Gerrera might be looking to recruit more people, having a bunch of clone soldiers who are against the Empire and are free thinking could be a really powerful tool for them as well. But it's a nice tease. And I also saw one more thing. Someone mentioned Darth Maul, the possibility that Darth Maul is now starting up his syndicate and is pretending to be against the Empire or is part of being against the Empire for his own reasons. Could he be recruiting them? I wonder.
Darth Maul is not a good guy, but Darth Maul is against the Empire.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean,
he's not a good guy, I guess. Yeah.
He has his own reasons for it, but he's like, I mean, he's pissed at Palpatine, and he doesn't like that Palpatine didn't let him be his apprentice, and he's got his own axe to grind.
Right.
I guess you can't really tell in a hologram. It didn't look like it was like a black robe, and I don't see Darth Maul wearing like brown robes, but
could it be Obi-Wan?
But I mean,
I don't know. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
It could be. So it's an interesting thing because what I also think that they're doing that's kind of neat is that you're seeing two different reactions to the Empire happening in Bad Batch right now, which actually makes sense, which is to the wider world, when we go to these planets, whether it be Pantora or anywhere else, and you see them doing these, the chain codes, and the Empire's here to save the day, and turn in your old credits for Imperial credits. You see the people cheering, the troopers, and you see everyone happy that this droid clone war has come to an end. And it's like, oh, great, the Empire's coming in to make everything okay, and sort of believing the propaganda. But then you have these other characters, like I was saying, Bail Organa knows what Palpatine was down to because he rescued Yoda. So like, Ahsoka knows what's going on. The Martez sisters seem to know what's going on. Saw Gerrera just learned to fight from Anakin and Ahsoka and never stopped fighting until he blew up in Rogue One. Like that dude that dude was in it from the get-go. Yeah. And so when the fact that Trace and Rafa are sort of on this side where they are already like, we're working to fight the Empire, we're doing Darth Maul knows exactly what's going on. So the fact that they have R7 and they're in the mix means that they are in the know, which does make so that I don't think that it's Obi-Wan. I think Obi-Wan is off doing his own thing and totally in hiding. So but it really does get down to Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Bail Organa, Darth Maul, Rex, and maybe a handful of others, Saw Gerrera, that would be the ones that this early are like, fuck no to the Empire. Everyone else is going to take a while to get there, which is where we get to when we get to Hera and Kanan and everybody in Star Wars Rebels, which is a few years later.
Yeah, great point, Mike. All right, that's how the show ends, and so we've left with mysteries. This was only 24 minutes. This was a short episode, but I think it had a lot in it, deceptively a lot more in it than you might think. Let's get some final words before we wrap up here. Shannon, any final words about this overall episode, where we're going next?
Well, yeah, I mean, this was episode 6? Okay, yeah. So we are, as you had said, we are about a third of the way in. I saw someone mention in the chat that they're afraid that the Bad Batch are going to come back and Sid's place is going to be on fire, which would be terrible. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to lose Sid this quickly. I think she's going to be around for a bit. I'm really excited for the return of Crosshair. Because I think he provides just a different point of view, and we get to see how the Empire is progressing in this effort to kind of get all the planets to be like, all right, this is our standard operating procedure from here on in. Yeah. But I also love the fact that at the end, and I don't think we talked about this, Omega shot that bow perfectly.
Yes, she did. Yes,
I don't think she just magically became stronger. I'm wondering, like, okay, is it when she realizes something I'm very curious what the justification is, because they're just too good of storytellers to say, okay, she's suddenly stronger. It's like, no, there's something in her programming that once she realizes this is what I need to do, she's able to do it.
Right. Okay. And Michael, any final words on this one?
Like I said, great episode. I'm definitely more on the anxious to see where it's going, but you can see how everything is getting, like, they're setting up all the things. We already know Crosshair's out there and that Hunter and the team sort of would like to bring their brother back into the fold. We know that the Wrecker stuff is getting close to coming to a head. We've got this Omega mystery that's still sort of floating out there. We've got the who hired Fennec Shand. Was it the Kaminoans? Was it somebody else? And now we've got who is this person that's sort of tied to what feels like the beginnings of the rebellion with Trace and Rafa, who's going to show up. And so, even as I am one of the ones complaining that I wish things were moving faster, they are setting up a lot of pins to knock down in the back half of the season. And I really think once things get going, they are really going to get going.
I agree. We had a couple of quick super chats real quick. Let me throw them up here. Colin Vandenberg says, is anyone else suddenly rooting for a big happy family between Hunter, Rafa, Trace, and Omega? I mean, sure.
Look, Hunter and Rafa as a couple, to me, makes total sense.
Yeah. I think so too.
It does make me wonder, though, not to bring things down, guys, but because we know that when we get to Clone Wars and Ahsoka goes off after the clones that are remaining, and it's Rex and the other two, I'm curious to see what the future of the Bad Batch is, or how much of a future they have.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think you're not wrong there. Fredtastic314 says, I'm afraid the Bad Batch is going to come back from a mission and Sid's place is burning and she is dead. No, Fred. They're not going to kill Sid off. I think she's too good of a character to kill off in that way. No way.
Yeah, you don't hire Rhea Perlman and then show Sid like going crazy with the bow and not pay that off. Sid could go down. Don't get me wrong. It could absolutely happen. But she's gonna go down fighting. We're not just gonna show up and she's gone. If she goes, she's gonna take some people with her.
She's not gonna be an Owen or Baru. Like you're gonna see the fight.
Crispy. All right. Anyway, let's get out of here. Someone said, I am Jared Dean said, side note, one of the writers tweeted in the last 24 hours, buckle in starting next week. So, all right, great. So maybe we've laid the groundwork here, as I said, in the first third of the season. And now we're going to get going here and see some really awesome adventures going forward. But I think they're picking up speed over the last couple of episodes. And now we're going to get into the meat of what this is all about and get into some really difficult moments because they've laid the groundwork of where everybody stands right now in this universe and the conflicts that are there to be battled out either physically or verbally throughout the rest of the season. All right, thanks everybody for joining us live. Surprisingly enough, this morning, over 160 of you joined us live randomly, but thank you for taking the time to hang out with us. Please hit that like button. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MK2. And if you would like to follow Mr. Roca, it is @TheRoca Says.
Mikey?
If you would like to join us for more happy accidents like the one that we had this morning, here are some things that you can do. Definitely hit the like button, especially if you're in that. If you're watching live right now, you got no excuse. You heard me say it. Go do it right now.
Yep.
Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw page, and then if you are listening to this in the future and not live on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, definitely just take a minute to leave some stars, rate us, leave a comment. It helps us go up in the rankings so that more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, repost it on your Facebook page, send it to your friends. When your friend says they love the Bad Batch, send them the video and say, well, here's what these guys thought about it. Yep. And as always, thanks for joining because we love having you here.
We do. We absolutely do. And thank you guys for joining us randomly. It's the best. And I'm going to get so much crap when we get off air. All right. Thank you all so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And have a great rest of your Sunday. And we'll talk to you next time with another spoiler review episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.